After months, maybe even a year of silence, we finally have word, or at least a potential rumor, on when the Batman Part 2 begins filming.
Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Airy. Welcome to the StudioJake vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, ring the little bell and consider becoming a channel member. All right, so The Batman Part 2 has been a film of great discussion because when James Gunn came in and moved into taking over the DC Films side of things, he wanted to make everything continuity wise connected. And that's why he caused some confusion with saying he's going to keep some of the casting, change some of the other ones. He lied and said Superman was going to be a young Superman. Then it turned out he's not a young Superman, things like that. Well, so that kind of left the Batman up in the air because originally Walter Hamada, who was James Gunn's predecessor, James Gunn, and I should say his co-chair, Peter Safran, Walter Hamada was their immediate predecessor. And he was like, we're just going to do everything. It's all spaghetti. Well, but then James Gunn came in and he changed things. He wanted everything connected. So that kind of put movies like the Joker sequel and the Batman Part 2 kind of up in the air. Well, it waffled for a while. It kept getting delayed, but it seems finally we have word that it could begin filming. So this is according to Popverse, or the Popverse. Speaking to a crowd at Ace Superhero Comic Con 2024, Andy Serkis, who plays Alfred in The Batman, gave an update on the film. Well, there's a huge arc, which you've got. Nah, I'm not giving anything away, Serkis joked. However, Serkis did give us a timeline on when the movie might start filming and when we might see it in theaters. Basically, I know nothing about the movie other than that I've just found out that we're probably likely to be start filming early next year. Therefore, if you do the math, it'll be a year and a half after that. I know that Matt Reeves is working really hard on the script, Serkis continued. Matt Reeves being Matt Reeves, the extraordinary filmmaker that he is, I can only assume that it's going to be another brilliant script because I thought what he did with that first film was pretty amazing. I loved working with Rob Pattinson, and I really look forward to playing Alfred once more. And of course, the official release date for the Batman Part 2 is October 2nd, 2026. Personally, I think that's too long. I think that James Gunn should have just let Matt Reeves do a Part 2. Now, originally, when Hamada came on board, they had said that if the Batman performed well, that it would be a full-on trilogy, kind of similar to the Dark Knight trilogy. However, like I said, James Gunn and Peter Safran, they moved into DC Films. They relaunched the DC extended universe into just the DC universe, and they want everything to be interconnected, kind of what like Snyder was planning. Now, even though Blue Beetle isn't officially a part of the DCU, he has said that the actor who played Blue Beetle is going to return. He has said that even though technically the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker season 1 at least were part of the Snyderverse, technically, that a lot of the actors from there were going to join the DCU. I do think that I don't want to say Gunn sabotage at this because right now Warner Brothers needs this win. The Batman performed very well. I thought it was good as a Batman fan. Not the best Batman movie ever. That's clearly Batman Mask of the Phantasm, but it's still sort of brought in. It was kind of funny. Me and Jester Bell were talking about this on one of her live stream, and this is an aside. Sorry, I'm getting a little off track here, but just to say this, if you were a Batman fan, you tended to like the Batman, even with the race and gender swapping of some of the characters. It still managed to maintain some of its connectivity to its comic book origins. It was very similar to Batman Zero Year when the Riddler tries to take it in, obviously differently because in that the Riddler actually succeeded in taking over Gotham City. But one of my problems with some of the statements that like Reeves and Pattinson made was that they wanted to base the characters on real life people. So I remember they were saying they were taking Kurt Cobain as inspiration for Bruce Wayne, and they were taking the Zodiac Killer for inspiration from the Riddler. And I'm kind of like, why don't they just take inspiration from the comics? These characters have decades of experience, and it seems like they did do that. So my trepidation about that was kind of relieved, my consternation, if you will. So back to the topic. Sorry, I just had to go that on an aside. I I'm looking forward to the Batman Part 2. I am looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good. Matt Reeves is an excellent director. I've seen several of his movies. He's not blown me away amazing. I don't think he's necessarily a visionary and all that, but he is a competent, qualified, and excellent filmmaker. He's a good director. So I do think the Batman Part 2 has a ton of potential to get the ball rolling again, to regenerate interest, at least in DC comics projects. Not so sure about Marvel, because sometimes there's some bleed over. That's definitely what led to the success of Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. It wasn't that Zack Snyder is a great filmmaker, because he's not. He's a hack. But the charisma of the actors and then also the bleed over from the MCU helped those movies. That's why you see a steady decline in their box office returns. Now, what this could mean for the Batman Part 2, it's going to also depend on the villain. So I've heard two names thrown around with the Batman Part 2, and I've talked about this before as well. I've heard Clayface and I've heard Hush. Now, hopefully, they won't do that annoying thing where they combine the characters. I hope that if it turns out to be Hush, they do a Hush focused story arc, because obviously they've hinted at Joker and Riddler working together at some point. The Hush storyline would be perfect for that, because in the comics, spoiler alert, the Riddler works very closely with Hush and even poses as him at some points in the comics, and vice versa. Now, if they go the Clayface route, they have an opportunity here, because originally Clayface, the Basil Karlo interpretation of Clayface, which there's apparently going to be using for Batman the Cape Crusader, he is originally just an ordinary man who, he's an actor. He's filming a movie about a serial killer called Clayface. He goes a little kooky and he becomes a serial killer in Gotham City, which Batman stops him. And then eventually he gets exposed to the chemicals that turn him into Clayface. And then, of course, down the line, they introduce other characters like Matt Hagen. And for Batman the Animated Series, they did combine Basil Karlo with Matt Hagen. I guess they liked the name of Matt Hagen better than Basil Karlo. So they could do something like that, where it's like Batman trying to solve the serial killer mystery. It turns out it's Basil Karlo. They have a scuffle, and Karlo falls into, or gets, as in the Batman the Animated Series, gets drowned in the chemicals, and a hint that he becomes Clayface at the end. Now, Matt Reeves seems to make it more grounded. With Nolan, he kind of approached it from a grounded perspective, but he still added like a lot of sort of James Bond-esque moments in his Dark Knight trilogy, so it would still have that sort of, out of reality sense. Reeves doesn't really want to do that. He seems to want to keep it as grounded and street level as possible, which I'm all for. I love street level Batman. In a lot of ways, I like the street level Batman better than the Justice League Batman. He's traipsing all over the galaxy. Batman should be fighting crime in Gotham. Now, I do enjoy some of those stories, don't get me wrong, but I tend to like the street level Batman better. So if The Dark Knight Part 2 does start filming in early January 2025, I do hope we'll get that release date of October 2026. Again, though, I do think it's way too slow. They should have moved forward with this way, way faster. And because I think that this will affect. Now, I know it's because James Gunn, he's holding back because he wants to announce who is going to play Batman in his DCU. If I was him, I would incorporate Pattinson, but he's not going to listen to me or the fans because he wants to do his own thing. He doesn't want the Batman to be the first movie of the new DCU, just like he didn't want Blue Beetle to be. So, I go back and forth on this. He's not making great decisions. I think he's stifling DCU. He has an opportunity here, especially with Disney's constant ruination of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Whatever the case may be, I do hope that Andy Serkis is correct, that the film does start filming so we can get to that October deadline. I do want to see a sequel to this, maybe not a full trilogy if, we're going to move forward, because that would cause too much brand confusion. But, TV show is different. If they did a Batman TV show, kind of like what they're doing with the Penguin, and except about Batman, if they did that, that's separate from the DCU, that won't cause brand confusion. But I do think two different movie universes would. We saw that happen with 007. They released Never Say Never Again with Sean Connery as James Bond at the same time as Octopussy with Roger Moore. And really the only reason Sean Connery kind of won at the box office was because of his name recognition. But it actually hurt both movies, because the new generation of Bond fans, and there's a lot of them, the Gen Xers, they like Roger Moore. They think he's a better Bond than Connery. And that's just the reality. I know I'm a millennial. I like Tim Dalton. He's my favorite Bond. Come at me in the comments. I don't care. Christian Bale is my favorite live action Batman. Kevin Conroy is my favorite animated. And he counts because he had a full length theatrical film release. So he counts among the pantheon of cinematic Batmans. All that to say, I look forward to seeing the Batman, and if James Gunn is going to try to incorporate it into the DCU, we're just going to have to wait and see. If you like that video, be sure to give it a like, leave me a comment, tell me what you think, share it out to all your friends, and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications, and consider becoming a channel member where you get all kinds of perks, and it helps support indie creators like myself. But if you're watching on Rumble, Odyssey, or BitChute, and you're like, hey, I don't want to really support you on big tech, no worries. Click on the link to my locals community. It's in the description of the video. It's another way you can help indie creators. It's kind of like a Patreon and a subscribe star if you need that comparison. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on StudioJake.
Cause I've been living life right like I could just die